I'll bet you we get a minimum of 100 hits a day, questions, on my website about rhododendrons. What we've done for you, we brought in Greg Derringer from Derringer Nursery out in Oregon, and Derringer's has a reputation as one of the foremost nurseries in the world. Greg's going to give us some information on rhododendrons, everything we want to know, and I guess, Greg, first of all, thanks a lot for coming. Long trip. My pleasure. Nursery. And Greg's going to give us a little lesson on planting rhododendrons, and I guess the first thing that you want me to do, Greg, what I would generally do is dig a hole, probably a little bit less than the depth of the pot. So I want to plant it a little bit high and a little bit larger, you know, than the size of the pot. Is that agreeable? Or?
Well, I'll tell you what, we have a slightly different approach than conventional thinking would lead. We like to think that a rhododendron is going to thrive best when it is in a virtual raised bed. Now, how you can get the equivalent of a raised bed is by digging a shallower hole. It means less work to you, basically, but the plant will do quite a bit better.
Well, when you say shallow hole, what does that mean to me?
Well, I would say no more than planting 1/3 of the total depth.
1/3?
That's right.
1/3 you want? You want 2/3 of that plant out of the ground?
That is correct.
Okay, cool. Okay, hey, look, all I'm doing is listening here. Okay, so let me dig the hole. Now, you want it how wide, Greg?
Rhododendron root balls grow at a ratio of about 2 to 1 in width to depth.
So about twice the width?
About twice the width, exactly.
Now this is going to be nothing if that's all you want.
Well, people think a lot of times that what they need to be doing is actually a lot of work, and maybe it's gratifying to them, but it doesn't help the plant any. And a rhododendron, you can avert so many of the other problems associated with root rot and disease simply by putting the plant in an environment where it will exist and thrive. A lot of times you can reduce the amount of disease that travels laterally in the strata through the water.
Through the water.
For the water, and it just eliminates the pathogen or a conduit for the pathogens to go through.
Well, look, I'm almost above ground here. Is that deep enough?
That looks good to me.
Let's talk about taking it out of the pot. We know that we never pull it out, Greg. Let me do it. I'll go to work. You sit there and look stupid, Greg. Okay. Okay. Never take a plant and pull it out. Just take the pot and just slip it off.
That's correct.
It'll come out. Now, Greg, what I would generally do is start root pruning this with a shovel or a knife.
Again, not necessary. In this particular case, this plant was grown in a native soil, an amended native soil in Oregon, and it's not necessary to actually root prune the plant. It has already been done and then put into a container. So it has just been root pruned here very recently.
Well, I can notice if you'll lean that down, they can get a shot. I can see where these roots are already coming out, so that you can see they're not girdling.
That's right. These are new fine root hairs that have developed since it was actually root pruned, and it's ready now to go into the gardener's yard.
Okay, so now you want to just set it in the hole?
You bet. Just set it in the hole, just like this.
2/3 above the ground.
Yep. In fact, that's even slightly deep, but in this particular case.
And we want to get it viewed, Greg, well, you talk, there's always a side.
There's what they call a face to a plant. It's the actual orientation of a plant, the way it grew naturally, and it's slightly lower on that side. You want to face that to the side that's visible from your viewing area, from your home or wherever place or viewage point that you enjoy. So leave it like that.
Okay. Now generally what we would do here is we would incorporate a compost mixture, probably leaf grow or something like that, with the existing soil and backfill it. You've got a different idea here too.
My opinion is if you can find a very good, high organic, acid, something like, let's say, pine bark.
Pine mulch, we've got
pine mulch, if that's indigenous to this area, that's fine. Use that and backfill it up to the root ball in its new raised environment, and that plant will root out into that. Again, it'll prevent a lot of the root diseases that you have here down the road. So this is a preventative approach.
Hold on. No soil, nothing. You want to put pine bark mulch?
That's correct.
Okay, and then you want to mulch the top of it with a hardwood shredded mulch.
That's right. You can come in when you're all finished, putting the plant in, and you can put anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of your mulch on top of the plant, just to keep the thermal benefits intact, so you don't see those high swings, high and lows.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, because this plant's so high, what about watering here?
Well, the thing about watering a rhododendron is they like moisture. They like it moist all the time. They don't like it wet, and they don't like it dry. The opposite ends of the spectrum do also create stress, which then are a host for certain diseases and pests. So moisture, if you can just keep it in that mid-moist range, rhododendrons love it. Too much water, though, is definitely death to rhododendrons.
Okay, and that's why we planted it so high. So basically, you would water this, and it also depends on where. You remember, the rhododendrons will grow in a shady area, but they'll also grow in full sun.
That's correct.
Okay? And if they're in full sun, you want to?
You want to do some afternoon misting, not heavy watering. Do not confuse this with watering. All you're doing is giving a syringe or just a mist to the foliage, just to keep it a little cool. Keep it from scorching. A lot of times you'll notice there'll be a dollar-sized brown spot in the middle of the leaf, the end toward midsummer, late summer. That can be prevented by just by putting a little bit of water on the foliage in the afternoon sun. That's it.
That's interesting. And talk to me about fertilizing then. I can't even imagine what you have to say about this.
Glad you asked. Actually, what we do in our particular circumstances might vary from the home gardener. We don't need to get that complicated, but if you use even a good source of fertilizer, such as a Miracle-Gro rhododendron azalea fertilizer, that would be very adequate. Something with a high phosphorus level. That's your middle number on the three main numbers that you see on the fertilizer bag. Okay, you want to bias it toward that middle number, and that ratio, again, should be about 2 to 1.
Okay.
Twice as much phosphorus as we do nitrogen.
When do you suggest fertilizing, and how often?
For most of these circumstances in the home garden, right after bloom time is a good time to get your fertilizer applied on the plant. Keep it away from the trunk so it doesn't burn any of the tissue around there. Put it around the perimeter of the root system, near the drip line, and that will adequately supply the plant with most of its nutritional needs.
Okay.
And it will basically stave off any nutritions or deficits that do happen in typical landscapes.
Okay, let me talk to you about one of the things that I enjoy doing. You know, I'm strange. Everybody knows how strange I am. I'm sure we've been together all day, so I'm sure you know too. But I love to debud plants. You know, when this bloom is just about, as we say, spent.
Yes.
And I like to come in and just take that bud off. And is that in fact important, Greg? Does that promote the new flower bud, or is this just something that I like to do?
Well, the first thing is please enjoy the beauty of the plant as it sits, and wait until that bloom has virtually faded, until it no longer... Yeah, oh, most definitely. This is still hitting its stride here, so I would say wait until the flower has hit its peak, and then go out in your leisure and carefully remove, or deadhead as they refer to it, the flower bud, the spent flower bud. Try to be careful not to remove these new growth buds. These new growth buds turn into branches, which then put a new flower bud on top of them. Okay. So that's your next.
But it is a good idea.
It's a good idea. It does divert the energy of the plant into production versus seed production, which stays dormant. So it triggers a different set of physiological responses in the plant.
Okay, you think it's therapeutic or just me? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, hold on. Okay, let's recap the whole thing. Just go over quickly some of the key points that Greg talked about. When you dig the hole, he only wants you to dig the hole about 1/3 of the depth of the pot, plant it very high. When you backfill it, ideally you would get a pine bark mulch and just backfill it with that. Very acidic, or if you have leaf grow or something, add something acidic in there and backfill it. Mulch it with hardwood shredded mulch, which will keep the water in, keep it warm in the winter, cool in the summer. That's important. When you fertilize it, you suggest Miracle-Gro's, azalea and camellia food, and watering. What'd you say? What was the thing about watering?
One of the things about rhododendrons, remember, they're not like a lot of other species. They do not have a deep taproot. They're shallow rooters. They root out laterally. Give them medium water in the morning, and that's it.
Okay. Look, some just terrific advice from Greg Derringer, Derringer Nursery.